Okay, hello guys. So we have got Paul McNeal today from Virginia. Thank you so much, Paul, for being on the show today. And Paul is a very accomplished man. He's an ex-US Navy who has worked in communications and security with the US Navy and has served the country for about 10 years. So we are really thankful to you for all your wonderful contribution towards the safety of the society and the whole world. And now Paul has turned into an entrepreneur. He's a serial entrepreneur. He started successful companies, which actually got acquired, one of his content startups. And now he serves in various advisory roles to multiple companies all across the world. And he's one of the top influencers out there with 15,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. And he's the guy to talk to if you're looking forward for any of your blockchain stuff and need any of the advisory. He's one amazing man out there who would help the community selflessly. And just on a short notice, he's here today on the show. So thank you so much, Paul. A very good morning and really excited and grateful to have you here today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, Paul, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself and what actually got you excited, from quitting your job, or quitting your service to the nation and getting or being an entrepreneur. I think obviously it's been a tough journey, and then moving onto the blockchain and cryptocurrency. So, what actually got you excited about? I mean, what made you to take that call that okay, now this is the time I want to do this, and this is the time I believe that blockchain is going to change the world?
Sure. Well, my journey is a little bit of a weird one. I was just, I grew up in Dallas. Wasn't necessarily the inner city. It was sort of the suburbs of Dallas, but still definitely a modest means. And when I graduated high school, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was probably supposed to go to college, but I didn't. Instead, I was just working fast food restaurants, things like that. The Navy approached me one day while I was on my way to work and asked me if I wanted to join the military. I wasn't too keen on it, but then eventually they got me. So I went to the Navy, served 10 years, great experience, amazing experience, served on 3 different submarines, toured the world. It was just a phenomenal experience. But from that, it opened so many doors for me. And out of a lot of the relationships I had, I went to go on to work for the government for a little bit as a contractor, then as a government employee. And that's when I stumbled my way into entrepreneurship. I ran a business with a good friend of mine. We built that from the ground up. Took us about 8 years, but we wound up running that business successfully. I exited, he kept it, and he grew it, and they wound up getting it sold. It was probably like 18 years later, which is pretty impressive for 2 guys that never run a business before. And then from that, that's when I got the bug about Bitcoin. It was on Twitter. I came across it. I think it was Trace Mayer that was mentioning something about Bitcoin on Twitter that I first saw something about it. Eventually started reading articles, listening to podcasts. As the story goes, I went down the rabbit hole, and I've been tuned in ever since. And then I started toward the end of 2016, 2017, a newsletter, and that's sort of what I'm currently doing today.
Oh, wow. So would you like to tell a bit more about your newsletters and what are the cool stuff you cover on the newsletters? So probably our subscribers can actually subscribe for your newsletters and they could know more about it.
Sure. Yeah, actually, you know what? When I started hearing about Bitcoin and blockchain, and at the time it was really just Bitcoin. This was back in 2011. Litecoin was there a little bit because Charlie Lee had just started Litecoin. And as I began to listen to all this information, I started getting a feeling like this is going to be something. It wasn't until 2013 when Andreessen Horowitz put 25 million in Coinbase, and Coinbase had just come on the scene, that I clued in and said, there's really something to this. This is a lot more than I had anticipated. My former business was a news curation company. We collected news information, put it in daily briefs for a lot of Capitol Hill, Fortune 500 companies. So I started asking myself, I said, I wonder if there's a product like this, but for the Bitcoin space. And there's a lot of great newsletters out there. A lot of them, they'll give you a few articles and they'll probably have them rewritten. But there was no one doing a comprehensive look at the world of Bitcoin. So that's what I decided to do. I began to curate news information about almost everything whether it's exchanges, wallets, storage. It could be about the bad stuff that happens, hacks, attacks, and scams is what I call it. It can be about the exchanges themselves, or it can be about rules and regulations. But then I put together a full brief every day and I send it out. It's curation of podcasts, videos, blogs, social media mentions, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, wow. So guys, the CryptoCurator.com is one of the best source of free knowledge to follow. You could get, it's like an all-in-one store for your knowledge base. Right. So Paul, recently, there's been a lot of excitement about, recently Fed coming up with one of the largest bailout in the history, right? I mean, probably $2 trillion plus bailout coming all the way. So how do you think it's going to have an impact, and how do you think that crypto and blockchain industry overall could be actually benefited? And combining that with official Fed digital US dollar kind of a coin, how do you think that would add a lot of value to the current financial crisis which the world is facing?
Yeah, and again, because I'm in Bitcoin and I've been listening to this story a long time, and what we're experiencing now has been a long time coming. I've been hearing literally for years people talking about there's going to be a recession and there's going to be problems in the financial industry. I've listened to a lot of great podcasts. One of them is a guy named George Gammon. He really breaks down what's going on with the repo markets, what's going on with the Fed. And when you start listening to this, and now we're seeing them print $2 trillion, it's unbelievable the magnitude of what's happening in the financial industry. And so the impact that I think it's going to have is a couple of things. So a lot of people might look at this pandemic and say, this is the problem why we're having problems, but it really isn't. It's really about the financial, and not just US, global financial markets. The central banks have been in trouble for a long time. There's a normal boom bust cycle to things, and they've been preventing that by printing money. This is why Bitcoin was created, was to solve this problem about Feds uncontrollably printing money. And when they print money, it devalues our value. And that's what most people don't understand, is when the Fed prints this kind of money, we should eventually experience inflation, and at this point, probably hyperinflation. But it means that your dollar in your hand becomes worth less and less each time they print more and more. So Bitcoin is here to rescue us from that. Why? Because it's a decentralized, censorship-resistant technology, which no one can stop, no one can shut down. Governments have attempted to ban it, and then they come back and say, nope, we can't ban it. So it's scarce. There's only 21 million Bitcoin there'll ever be. And this is what's so hard for people to understand. Trust me, people, 21 million. There are 31 million millionaires in the world. That means every millionaire can't own one Bitcoin. That's a problem. But it's a good problem, because those of us that hold Bitcoin will see our value appreciate over time. It's not an inflationary currency, it's a deflationary currency, and it's a good thing. So I think what you're seeing with this pandemic, it was the pin that popped the everything bubble. And now that bubble has burst, the impact we're going to see, a lot of people out here say, oh, we'll be back to normal in 2 months, 3 months. This is going to take years for us to get back. And we probably won't get back to normal. This will be the new normal. And I think we're going to have UBI as a result of it.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. But recently we have seen, Warren Buffett making statements again, in his annual grand meeting, where he said that, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoins or Ethereum actually does not have any intrinsic value. So how would you say that, these things have intrinsic value apart from that, it's limited, it's a deflationary currency, right? That is something which everybody has been, talking about, and some believe and some does not believe. So my whole idea is that to, probably, getting non-believers converted into believing that, okay, it has some intrinsic value. So how do you feel, or from your perspective, what is the amazing intrinsic value what Bitcoin carries?
It does have value, and here's the reason it has value, and this is always the question about where does it get its value? To be honest, why does gold have its value? Because someone has value on it, right? Someone says, that's a metal that I want. And as long as one person has something someone else wants, there is a value that's attached to that. If you look at gold, a lot of people say, well, you can make things with gold. You can make jewelry with gold. You can make computer components with gold. Therefore, it has value. With Bitcoin, we have an amazing resource, and that is your privacy and your security. Now, a lot of people say, well, but Bitcoin, people can see all your transactions out there on the network. This is true, but there will be more developments coming to Bitcoin that will, in fact, make it private. But outside of that, the Bitcoin network is made up of three major parts. You have miners, you have developers, and you have nodes. What people have to understand is that the miners have to buy hardware, they have to spend electricity to keep the network secure. And Bitcoin is the most secure network on the planet. You can't hack the Bitcoin network if you try. Now, people say, well, Paul, I've heard about hacking. Yes, but it's been third-party pieces that go to Bitcoin that's gotten hacked. But the actual protocol of Bitcoin has never been compromised, and it most likely never will be compromised. It will require billions of dollars to hack that code. And even then, they can do one change on the Bitcoin network before people realize that it's been compromised, and they fork off of that chain and start a new chain. This is what people don't understand. Time, energy, resources are being spent to maintain a global decentralized network that has tremendous value. It's like the internet. The internet has value. Why? Because it's a global medium of commerce, a medium of exchange, medium of communication. It's a medium of everything. Bitcoin is the same way.
I think that's wonderful. So that brings me to my next concluding question, right? So probably from, maybe 5 years from now, where do you see this space is going towards? So are we actually, this COVID-19 or this pandemic could be a blessing in disguise for driving a mass adoption for cryptos much faster? And if so, where do you think we're going to go ahead in next 5 years or 10 years from now? So are we getting any closer towards mass adoption of cryptocurrencies? And if yes, what do you think the activities with the community should take up, or this industry should take up, to drive towards mass adoption of cryptos?
I think we are. And I will say it's unfortunate the way this is happening, this pandemic. It's sad that people are losing their lives from a virus that spread it globally within a matter of months. It's unbelievable. But that being said, the ramifications of this, I think, are going to have some positive benefits. And it's horrible to say that, but it's forcing people virtual now. Before this pandemic happened, I can't tell you how many people I used to try to say, do what we're doing right now. Oh, I don't want to do it. I don't have time. Now, there's everybody on Zoom. They're working. They're running their businesses virtually right now because of this pandemic. That, to me, is a net positive. You look at things like paper processes. Those are going to go the way of the dinosaur. And before you know it, no one will use paper. Everything will be digital. And I think that's going to be great. It's unfortunate that it has to be a virus that's taking lives and that's causing problems, but I think the impact is going to be great. And that's where, again, I don't think we return to normal. I think we're going to have a new normal, and that's what this is going to be. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin and it comes to blockchain and where it'll be in the next 5 or 10 years, I do believe we're getting mass adoption. I just don't think it's the way people will see and because of a full test that's shifting slowly. But we're going to wake up one day and everything is going to be attached to a blockchain. Everyone will be using digital assets. Look at what happened with the stimulus package. They said that they were going to create a digital dollar that's built on the Ethereum blockchain. Granted, it got pulled out of this most recent stimulus bill, but I think it's going to happen. We will see a cryptocurrency, so to speak, but a digital asset that the government can use, because if everyone on the planet had a digital wallet, the government right now could get aid to them super fast. Push a button, you could send thousands of dollars to people's wallets in an instant. Everyone's taken care of in a situation like this. But now they've got to go the old route. Either they got to send them checks or they've got to try to get their bank account. But if they don't have a bank account, it's just too complex. In the next 10 years, I believe we're going to see our world completely revolve around digital assets and blockchain technology. It's secure, it's safe, it's reliable, and that's what we're going to, and that's where I think we're going to see us go.
Okay, wonderful. So my last question, what is your price prediction for Bitcoin 2025?
Price prediction for Bitcoin 25. So this is the fun part. If you've listened to a guy named Bob Lucas, he has a YouTube channel. It's called The 4-Year Journey. And if you listen to what he says there, coupled with the stock to flow ratio that's done by Plan B, I think it's 100 trillion USD on Twitter. The projection is that we are going to reach 100,000 within the next, I'd say, few years. And I know it sounds crazy. And I tell people back when Bitcoin was $100 and I was telling them they should get involved with Bitcoin, never in my wildest dreams that I think we were going to reach 20,000 so fast. But we did. We hit it and we went all the way back to 3. Now we're back around 6 or 7. So I think it's easy to see that in the next 3 to 5 years, that and I'm not the only one. Tim Draper also has this prediction. Tim Draper's is not more bullish. He says by the year of 2022, or I think it's at 2022 or 2023, that we could be at 250,000. There was a report that recently came out this morning that said that the millennials and Gen Xers, the money that they're inheriting, $50 trillion in inheritance, is going to go to Bitcoin. You're going to see the number of Bitcoin skyrocket. We call it your melting your face rally. And I think it's going to happen to where we will see exponential price increases the same way we did back in 2017 when it went from literally 3,000 to 20,000 like overnight. So I think we can go from where we are here around 6 or 7,000. I think we can easily be over all-time highs by the end of this year and definitely possibly crossing into 6 figures within the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, that's wonderful. So just to give a brief disclaimer, I think I also have good holdings in cryptocurrencies. I think Paul, you do too. So this is not actually an investment advice. So if you're looking forward to invest into cryptocurrencies, please follow all the compliances, all the regulations, and be aware that this is a very risky or volatile asset. So please invest at your own risk and be careful of any quick rich scams out there, because this is not how you can actually mine Bitcoin of thin air. It takes a lot of resources. So be careful, guys, and just hodl. So thank you so much, Paul. It was really wonderful talking to you. And thank you so much for being here today. So what are the good ways if any of our users would want to reach out to you, and how they can actually reach out to you? I understand you don't use email or WhatsApp. So probably the best way to reach Paul is through LinkedIn. I think you could just type in Paul McNeal, and I think he is the top guy you would see on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
What are the other ways? So are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter. It's _ the CryptoCurator. So @ the CryptoCurator on Twitter.
Okay, so we are gonna follow him right away, guys. Please do follow him and reach out to Paul if you want to know anything about cryptos, or if you're looking for a wonderful mentor who can actually help you out in your journey. So thank you so much, Paul. It was really lovely to have you on the show today. So take care and thank you so much. So guys, see you again soon until the next episode. So we're going to have some amazing, there's going to be a big surprise on our next episode, and keep watching, keep sharing, and keep also sharing your feedback with us, so we could actually, work more on our content and grow our community better. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So
Thank you.